Hello, everyone. We are live again in room one, and I have Sven here with me on stage. Welcome, Sven. He's going to talk about lifting marketing potential through organizational transformation today. I'm really excited for your talk, Sven. Let me just introduce you really quick. Sven is working as the head of data and analytics at VML Germany. So basically, he's helping their clients in driving database marketing and their business strategy. But also, he's very, very active in the Mautic community. He is the team lead of our marketing team. So he wants to make Mautic better known in the whole world. So he supports companies to communicate more efficient with their clients. And since 2021, he's also working as a freelancer, mainly for small and medium-sized businesses with a focus on sustainability. He's based in northern Germany. That's actually quite close to where we are. And yeah, Sven, I don't think there's more to say. I'm really excited, and the stage is yours.
Thanks, Madeleine. Thank you very much for the kind words. And you're right. On a global scale, we are quite near each other. On a local scale, it's still somewhat around 2 hours drive. But yeah, so at least it's more or less northern Germany. Welcome, everybody, in the session. I'm happy to talk a bit about one of my pet peeve topics, so to speak, how marketing technology impacts organizations, or how organizations need to change to fully utilize the potential that lies in marketing technology. Let me shortly share my screen with you, and then we can start the session right. I apologize. It's a bit of a Frankenstein monster of a presentation. I tried to at least make it look halfway decent. I ripped quite a few things out of presentations that I do for my main work. So it still is, sadly, I wasn't able in time to rip out all the job, but it's just because I needed to use what I had, and I'm using the current master of my presentation master of my agency work. So yeah, sorry for that. Just ignore it. I'm talking about lifting marketing potential, or lifting marketing through organizational transformation, or quite a mouthful. And I will be mostly honoring the ideas of Eli Goldratt today, and those who followed him, standing on the shoulders of this witty giant. He was an Israeli physicist turned management consultant who basically in the 80s developed the theory of constraint and revolutionized business practices. And a lot of his ideas took shape and form in his book, The Goal, from, I think it's 1984. And quite an interesting read. He started with how to optimize, or how to make manufacturing better, basically, but his theory grew and later included other disciplines like project management and marketing and stuff. His work basically all the time emphasizes identifying and addressing bottlenecks in, let's call it, production. And you will see that marketing basically can also be thought of as a production system, and how to lift these bottlenecks and how to make them wider so that more basically work flows through them, so to speak. I will be using a fictitious story, and a fictitious company to illustrate what I'm talking about. It's based on companies I've worked with. It's based on problems I encountered when working with a few companies. But due to confidentiality, I'm not allowed to name names. So I created and used a fake company name that we basically created a few years back for cases like that. So we, is in this case, my girlfriend and I, because she needed a fake product once to talk about stuff. So you will be hearing about a company called Valeria Vita. It's just a fake fictional health company, a health supplements company that faces a few, especially B2B related, but that could also be B2C related marketing challenges, and how they deal basically with it, or how they dealt with it, and how they used methods from the toolbox of the theory of constraints to find the bottlenecks and to optimize there. But basically, I need to take a step back first, and take a general look at today's marketing technology landscape, because more often than not, tools like customer data platforms, but also marketing automation and CRMs are being sold as the sole solution for companies' problems. And while I think, and that's the quote on the lower left side, marketing technology is necessary, it is not sufficient. So it's like, and I had to use the evergreen given image. It's a bit like if you have something like the Suez Canal, but you wouldn't route your ships through it. You wouldn't. You had the technology in place, but you basically would still lose all what you could gain from it if you don't utilize it, if you don't change the processes within your company and the rules you're basically playing at. You wouldn't utilize that advantage fully, and basically lose money in the game. So while we have rapidly evolving marketing technology, or technology in general, and while we have a multiplication of touch points and channels and all that, and also changing expectations on the end user side, so expectations of seamless user journeys that they now are used to from a few companies. And we also have the necessity of, for example, consistent brand experience and a consistent voice in all channels and stuff like that. We have a plethora of requirements, but we are still acting, or a lot of companies are still acting when it comes to marketing, in the mindset and processes of the 80s, 90s, and maybe early 2000s, and and a lot of basically consultants and vendors sell them their software as a solution, and it shows that it isn't the solution, it is only one part of the solution. So it's basically, if you would soup up an old car with a big fat motor, so something like souping up a Beetle with a Porsche motor, but missing the brakes and missing the transmission, and not being able to drive it safely, or to leverage the added power, basically. So in the end, companies need to adapt their processes, need to break down silos, and to do that, basically, you should, in my book, start with identifying the limitations that are there. Because basically the cost of inaction is real and significant. I know of a company, as said, I can't name names, but not a small company that has an impressive marketing technology and personalization stack in place, and using quite a good suite of tools, but have neither the people in-house to utilize it, nor the processes that their agency vendors can support fully. And a lot of that cool tech basically lies dormant, costs money, and doesn't earn anything. And as Warner and Swayze wisely said, and I have the quote on the lower left, the company that needs a new process but hasn't implemented it yet is already paying for it. Meaning, you're already losing money if you're not utilizing the technology to its fullest extent. And that means you didn't implement the right process, but you're still already paying for it in lost revenue, so to speak. Yeah, theory of constraints. I tried to come up with a funny way of describing the main point, at least the main point to me of the theory of constraint, is always find the bottleneck, lift the bottleneck, find the bottleneck, lift the bottleneck. And I see the typo there, sorry. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And yes, it consists of a few other things and not unimportant things as well. But basically, you win a lot if you follow this process that I describe. And we will come to what a bottleneck means in a few seconds. So let's jump back to our fictitious company, Valea Vita, and talk about identifying constraints or bottlenecks. So the wording constraint or bottleneck is, in this case, a synonym and could be switched out. So I will be switching between the two words for the same thing, just to hopefully make that clear. So, oh, I think I switched to, yeah, sorry, I switched too early. So let's give a bit of context to the fictional company. So Valea Vita, as I said, is a fictional health supplements company. They are using a CRM in conjunction with a marketing automation tool, but still, and they sell their products in physical stores or through physical stores to an end customer base. So they don't sell directly to the customer except for their own smallish web shop. That is okay. But basically, their first line of customers are the businesses that sell their products. So it's more of a B2B company in that regard. And while they are using a CRM and a marketing automation tool, they actually have relatively low lead conversion rates when it comes to attracting businesses to sell their product. They also have physical salespeople that go out and try to tell people about the products, showcase them, the store managers, and also if you have a range of stores that buy from a central distribution hub, then try to get it listed in the central distribution hub as well. But basically, in the end, people come to their website to get more information and come to their digital marketing material to get more information on the price ranges, on the products itself and stuff like that. So they were relatively so they really had low conversion rates, even for that industry, really low conversion rates when it came to converting leads through their marketing efforts into sales. And applying ideas, as I said, from the theory of constraints, especially in terms of identifying the bottleneck, and also basically common sense ideas of, okay, let's map the whole process of how people go through getting interested, coming to the website, or interacting with the marketing material, becoming a potential prospect, becoming a lead, becoming a customer. The whole funnel, you could say, in marketing speak, or the whole flow, as you would say, for the process in TOC speak, and identifying where basically the leads dropped off, especially, and what would be potential reasons. And basically, we discovered two main bottlenecks there. It was really poor lead quality. So the marketing attracted a lot of potential leads. So we had a lot of visitors on the marketing material, on the digital material. But the performance, the conversion rate was really, really low, and the drop-off rate was really, really high. And also, and that was a more serious issue as well, we had really, really delayed follow-ups. So the sales team and then the service team were totally overwhelmed by the amount of leads, but the quality of the leads being so bad as it was, totally killed their ability to get back to the good leads in time. And recognizing these constraints, we were able to come up with solutions once. And I have to say, whenever you see cases that use a TOC approach, basically, you often end up in, okay, that's so obvious. you end up in obvious land, but it is only obvious after the fact and after you took a good look, and it wasn't obvious before. Because why wasn't and why it wasn't obvious before, I will come to later. But my experience with using methods from the theory of constraints to map a process, to map a flow, and to identify bottlenecks, more often than not, in the end, it's a facepalm moment with, okay, why didn't we see that before? And I actually heard that phrase quite often from clients. So we had identified these two areas, the quality of the leads and the ability to get back to leads in time for the salespeople. And once they were identified, we basically said, okay, let's refine the targeting and improve the lead quality first. Before that, the number of leads or the number of visits that we were able, or that the company was able through marketing to push onto their marketing and sales material, their digital pages, basically the landing pages, was one of the main KPIs that they looked at. And so there was a big incentive basically to put as much traffic onto these sites as possible, regardless of the quality. Once we started looking at the quality and targeting the marketing effort in the upper funnel way better and focusing it, the number of visits and the number of leads massively dropped, but the quality percentage massively increased. So basically we try to, that's not possible, but we try to get only people who would be interested or could be interested onto the page, not anybody. And that in itself solved the second problem, because the sales team wasn't overwhelmed anymore from bad leads, and had time for the good ones. And as we understood the whole flow, and as we I see the next typo, sorry for that, as we found the exact bottleneck, basically we saw the bottleneck we saw the conflict at the bottleneck. The conflict was get as much traffic or get as much leads as possible versus get good leads. And once we solved the problem with, okay, let's focus on good leads and kill the KPI and kill the incentives for this optimization for let's get as much traffic as possible. We had the root cause for the conflict in terms of a wrong incentivization. And after integrating that, we basically solved both bottlenecks at the same time, together with the client, basically. It's always a process that is not consultant-driven and not advice-driven. It's always let's identify something, let's discuss it, and be collaborative about it. And we massively increased the conversion rates. Well, yeah, we basically took out a lot from the divider number. So yeah, that's normal. But when doing that, we were able to lift this this constraint. And this is basically an example that you will find quite often. You have some incentives to optimize in a local funnel step, let's say it, or process flow step, whatever you will call it, to create a local optimization in terms of, okay, we need as much leads as possible, regardless of the quality. So you incentivize marketing to get much traffic, as much traffic as possible, and they win that game. But the overall process loses with that local optimization. And you will find that often if you look at the bottleneck, basically it is better to have less traffic there, to have less but more high quality traffic at the landing pages, so to speak, at the marketing material. And the same would basically could be said, and that's why it comes from production. Basically, when Goldratt discovered or invented that method, he was looking at production floors, and he discovered that oftentimes there in a production flow there's one work center where work piles up before that because it isn't because it is fully utilized already and doesn't have the throughput that the rest of the process before actually pushes down to that work center. And whatever you do on optimization in the process steps before, you would just increase the amount of work in process that piles up before that bottleneck. And on the other hand, whatever you do behind the bottleneck as an optimization technique, they still would idle because they would be more performant than the bottleneck in throughput, and they would have nothing to do as long as the bottleneck doesn't put through. So only what you optimize at the bottleneck is basically for the whole process an optimization, and it sometimes means cutting performance at the steps before the bottleneck, at least for a short while, and then optimizing the process at the bottleneck, and then looking at the whole process again. Do we find the next bottleneck, and so on and so on. So basically, if you go bottleneck hunting and solve one, you will find another one afterwards and can optimize there as well. So I would always say watch out for local optimization, especially because it is prone to kill global optimization in terms of performance. Basically, you get what you measure. What you incentivize at every step, and if you do local incentivizations, regardless if it is production, if it is marketing, if it is performance marketing or brand marketing, whatever you do, if it is content production, you get what you measure. And avoiding local optimization is basically done by creating incentives that incentivize for the whole process, even if that means maybe quote unquote suffering local less optimal situations and maybe people just sitting around, so to speak, for a bit of time because it could make sense in the bigger picture. For example, sorry, I just jumped a bit. I can't stress it enough because that is the most damaging thing I always find when analyzing processes at clients. Basically, is the silo-driven local optima. Pandemic, I would always call it in industry, because and I understand where it comes from. You have a marketing team, you have a sales team, you have a service team, and the marketing team optimizes marketing metrics, and the sales team optimizes sales metrics, and the service team also optimizes service tickets. And we all know that a salesperson promises anything to get the sale, and then the service or the IT people have to suffer for it because they have to deliver what sales promises. At least I know quite a few incidents where I discovered clients that had this experience with the IT. But in the end, if you optimize the whole value stream, so to speak, or the whole customer journey, you need to find ways to change the incentive structure and maybe even break down silo walls. But that is a political topic. That is a change process, and that is difficult. And I know that. But as especially also in the Mautic community, we produce a technology that can help companies to reach their customers better. But we also need, as a community, teach our, let's call it customers, the companies using Mautic, that only using the technology will not solve problems or not solve all problems, and that the technology necessitates a cultural or a process change in their companies. And These basically two quotes from Eli Goldratt show how he relentlessly in his speeches, in his writing, always throughout his whole career, at least as far as I followed it after the fact. So, and he passed away way before I discovered the theory of constraints. But his whole career was a fight against the local optimization, and always to have the global optimum in mind. And he strongly believed that complex systems basically still have more or less easy root causes if you follow down that if you go down that rabbit hole that follow cause and effect down to the root causes, you can solve complex systems with relatively common sense and straightforward solutions. But you have to take the time and the energy to do the work, basically. And that oftentimes, as I said before, the solutions are common sense and seem so obvious in hindsight. So basically, main points, just to do a recap, and then we can jump into a bit of Q&A. Technology needs to be aligned with organizational processes, or better, vice versa. You need to align your organizational processes to fully utilize the technology you intend to be using. TUT methods help with that, especially help in identifying bottlenecks and lifting them. The first part, a bit rephrased, is org structures need to be adapted and processes really need to be adapted to leverage new technologies. And learning. We all need, and especially in such cases, we need to embrace continuous improvement and continuous learning to stay agile and responsive. As said, technology is necessary but not sufficient. Also a quote basically by Goldratt. As I said, the whole talk would probably just be standing me on the shoulders of this person, this giant, and this theory. So basically, yes, thank you for listening. I hope you took a bit of inspiration with you. Just as a side note, even if you have never heard of Eli Goldratt, you will probably have heard of his, let's say, of the descendants of his ideas. So basically, the whole idea of DevOps in the technology space is, I would say, 80% inspired by the ideas from theory of constraints through the lean manufacturing and the lean movement as well. That's totally based on the theory of constraints. So if you ever have looked at lean methods, basically agile and especially things like DevOps and DevOps culture are totally based on that. And I discovered basically, even I'm not a developer, but I somehow stumbled into that whole DevOps space. And from there, I just followed the cause and effect rules, so to say, went down that rabbit hole and discovered Goldratt and really enjoyed reading his books and using it more and more with clients and being able to help clients with that. So from that, I'm looking forward to your questions. We'll stop sharing and looking forward to see Madeleine back on stage.
Thank you, Sven. That was really impressive. I personally never heard of the theory before, but I think there's a lot we can take from it for daily business. Yeah, just wow. Let me post one question and show on stage. As we're working in marketing automation with Mautic, my question would be how we can apply the theory of constraints to identify bottlenecks in marketing automation workflows.
It depends on the, let's say, on the problem you're facing. But let me describe one or two scenarios. Imagine you have quite a biggish audience, and you are able to create a lot of sub-segments or segmentation, and maybe even have a lot of content or you have an e-commerce store with a lot of different products in a lot of different categories. Now you are able, and your marketing people are able to create a lot of segments and are able to create a template that is adaptable and can use a lot of different content and use interest signals from, okay, this person is interested in these product categories to do recommendations and stuff. And then you have only a lone single designer who needs to create all the collateral, all the images and all that stuff. And you could push out way more communications and way better personalized materials, but your constraint might be that there is just this lone designer pushing pixels all day long, and she would even have quite a bad job, I imagine, and not be really satisfied. And if you can lift the constraint by helping her either through technology to get the task better done, or to include automatically pulling images into the marketing material, or hiring additional designers to make her life better, also a way. So there are different solutions in the end if you discover what the process is. But following the process, how does the marketing material is produced? What's the whole production flow, so to speak, up until it reaches the end customer? That could be one thing. On the other hand, you could even have the problem of, or you could have a technical problem that we have the same process, but your email server isn't able to send out the material in time, so the batches get stuck in queue. Or the bottleneck might not be that. It might be that something, your IP address wasn't warmed up enough and you end up in spam and you don't reach it. So you need to, and it's called value stream mapping. You need to map the whole stream, all the process steps from beginning to finish until you reach the end goal. The marketing material is opened by the customer, is read, and ideally clicked on. If you're talking about marketing automation in an email newsletter, for example, and see where there is the so-called bottleneck or the constraint and what potential reasons there are for that constraint, and then try to solve that locally. And then after it runs better, identify the next biggest bottleneck or next smallest bottleneck, so to speak, and you can repeat this process. And that is what is meant with continually getting better, continually improving, and iteratively making it better.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was just about to ask for kind of a step-by-step approach for marketers, but I think that was kind of already in what you explained, wasn't it?
Basically, yes. So I'm glossing over a lot of details here due to the time, and as Lola wrote in the chat, she discovered the ideas through the Phoenix Project book. And basically, the Phoenix Project book, just as a side note, is what Eli's book, The Goal, in the 80s was just for the development DevOps work now. So basically, and the authors tell that openly, they totally took the way The Goal was written and wrote a book about DevOps. And books like these show the methods in more detail, and then you can extrapolate it into your business. But a step-by-step approach would be, as I said, I would start to map I'm using, let's use the technical term from this theory of constraints. I would map the value stream. So I would start to identify which, let's call it work centers, touch which step. So from the idea from the segmentation to the creation of the template to the copywriting, what all the steps you need to do up until the product, in this case, a campaign email, reaches the end customer, or ideally reaches their inbox, is opened and is clicked. Because even if it reaches the inbox, it still doesn't mean it gets opened, because the subject line is just drab. Something like that. Or totally different reason. And once I have that, I would start to paint a funnel and okay, how much time does it take? And look at all these steps, and if it is measurable in terms of classical open rate, click rate, and stuff, then you have the classical funnel, and I would look at that. If it is more on the production side of the marketing material, I would look at okay, maybe use Kanban boards, and you see where work piles up on a Kanban board really easily because all post-it notes get stuck in the column before the bottleneck, basically. So Kanban board basically is your if it is on the production side, a Kanban board is your biggest friend in identifying bottlenecks and making work visible, especially our digital work. Making it visible, you clearly see the bottleneck, basically. And that helps a lot. And then from there, it is trying to find good ideas how to lift it.
Yeah, really interesting. Also, I think the examples you just mentioned helping so much in understanding the theory more and more. If you have one or two more examples that you or like bottlenecks you've met in marketing automation.
A lot of, especially in big-ish companies or in corporations, I would say one of the bottlenecks is approvals. Especially if it is a very hierarchical and rigid corporation, and you have one or two or three approval feedback cycles.
Yeah.
That's a bottleneck, especially if you have a culture of deference to the highest paid person in the room, basically. This is something that kills your performance every time.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
and this is something that is a change process in itself and not an easy one. But it is manageable, especially maybe if you can get by with pre-approvals for smallish projects where you can then in a small experimental setting, maybe as a proof of concept, get the company to approve. Okay, we have this SWAT team, so to speak, and they basically can do what they want. In terms of okay, we allow that, but we don't allow that, but within the given constraints, they can do what they want. And if they show that they win, and if they show their performance wins, and that the method works, that it really helps to have some wins on your back to go into meetings with a C-level. But mostly it isn't the C-level. More often than not, it's the middle management that basically are wrongly incentivized. And if you can show that to the C-level, it's relatively easy to change incentive structures, basically. Yeah. It's relatively hard to change processes if the incentive structures doesn't change. Because if your yearly bonus is being tied to getting as much traffic on a landing page as possible, you have a big incentive not to care about the quality of the leads.
Yep, of course. Yeah.
Or let's say to do the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would do the same.
Yeah. Really fascinating. I'm just checking the chat and the Q&A section, and I don't see any more open hands. Let's give folks another 30 seconds in case they still have a question. Now it's your time.
And yes, I really also like the Phoenix project. I think I have listened to it as an audiobook 3 times already, and I regularly revisit parts of it. So it's
really cool. I need to listen it. Well, there's Lola posted another question. Very cool. I'll show it on stage. How can we incentivize our marketing folks to read the open and bounce rates?
I,
That's really specific
oh,
to.
that's really specific, Lola. Oh wow, interesting. I would love to understand the context around that question way more in depth before I give an answer. But because basically, I would have thought that are their incentive KPIs already. Your question makes me doubt that they are. So basically, it sounds like people are sending out marketing material, especially newsletters or campaign mails, and are not incentivized to look at the results. And basically, I would say first idea could be to look at what they are incentivized for right now. But to me, it's just a human thing. So I don't care about technology in that question, because but if I were a person sending out marketing material or communications material, I would hope that the material is as interesting as possible, so that as many people as possible find it interesting and want to read it. And if I were a marketing person, I would want to know that. I would want to know that my work matters and that my work touches people. And that might sound grandiose, but even if it is just selling shoes, basically enabling people to find the right shoe to their liking, that is even making the life of a person in a very, very, very small sense better. And I know on a global scale, it doesn't matter. It's just selling shoes or whatever, and we have bigger problems. Yes. But on a small scale, if I receive a newsletter from a company I'm interested in, and they are able to, let's say, solve one of my problems, and be it I'm looking for new shoes and they recommend the right model to me, that at least solves half an hour of looking through their online shop for me. And it makes my life a little bit, in a small sense, better. And if I get people's mindset around that, and if I can make people think about, okay, if you're looking at these numbers, if you're looking at open rates, if you're looking at bounce rates, and especially also click rates, because open rate is a bit of a difficult metric, but that's in a totally different discussion. But if I can tell them that, hey, this helps you understand your readers, this helps you understand if you're reaching the people you want to reach, if they are interested in what you wrote, maybe that's the first idea. And just to offer it to you, ping me in Slack, in the Mautic Slack. I'd love to discuss the background of that question. I'm always interested in that. So I see you're from Canada, but we will find a time slot if you want to just discuss half an hour via Teams or via whatever. Just discuss the background of that question. I would love for you to contact me in Slack.
That's really lovely, Sven.
I,
Really cool. But it sounds
something
quite
I,
interesting.
I'm
Maybe I
totally
can join
interested.
your
Yeah,
discussion.
sorry. Yeah, I'm totally interested in stuff like that. So, and the question sounds so damn interesting, because I would never have thought to, to get that question, so to speak. So that sounds interesting.
All right, very cool. I think it's time to close this session. Sven, thank you so much. I think we all learned a lot. Let's all hop into the next sessions starting in 15 minutes in track 1. That will be Matthias talking about the Mautic release strategy. So, rather technical topic, but I think it's also interesting for most of us. So, hope to see you there and enjoy the rest of our conference.
Have a great conference. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here and listening. Have a great day. Madeleine, thanks for being such a great track lead.
Thank you. See you.
See ya.